In 2006, as we talked about last weekend, as we recapped several years back in the early 2000s, the curator was Lisa Stewart. 2006, Lisa was still with the Appalachian Bear Center, as it was called then. And the first bear of 2006 that arrived was bear number 67. And bear number 67 was named BJ. And I believe that was either named for or named by the Black Bear Jamboree. I think back at that time, maybe as a part of fundraising efforts or just community awareness efforts, some agencies or places were able to nickname some of the bears and sponsor some of those bears. And remember, this was kind of back during the days before Facebook and the days when we sat up at tabling events. And so really it was hard to get your facility known and advertisement about it because people couldn't really see it, and you just kind of had to share word of mouth or hopefully if the media or local newspapers helped and pick that up. So I think in some of the efforts to raise awareness about the facility, there were other companies, agencies, businesses that participated in giving some of the bears names, and you'll kind of see that theme occasionally. But this bear was BJ, and BJ was admitted in April of 2006. He was found orphaned in Georgia, and we don't know a whole lot about him other than he was 2 months old and he weighed 5 pounds. And we do know from the notes that he was unable to be released back in Georgia and could not be released. So therefore, he was given a permanent home at the Ober-Gatlinburg Black Bear exhibit, where he still resides today. And upon his release, he remained with us till March of 2008. So that was almost 2 years he was here at the facility until his release from ABR. And as I've said, we don't have a lot of information from some of these years back, so not a lot of details about the bears other than sometimes, especially if you have a bear that has to be placed and is not releasable, it can take a long time to find a placement or a facility that can take captive bears. You know, we've talked before that they can live up to 30 years or more. So it's a huge commitment. So sometimes it can take a long time to find a placement. But BJ was placed at the Ober-Gatlinburg Black Bear exhibit in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. The next bear that came in, this was also in April, was number 68, named Rambler. And Rambler was an underweight yearling. He weighed about 25 pounds and was found near Townsend Elementary School. And the old newsletters and what documentation we do have from 2006 said that he had been rambling around Townsend for weeks before he was captured. Wasn't causing any problems around any property, but had just been seen, and it was known that he was underweight. So he was picked up and brought to the facility. He was released in September of 2006 with bear number 66 that we talked about last year, Nicholas, who had come in right before Christmas in 2005. And they were released at the Tellico Bear Refuge, and he weighed 151.6 pounds. Now, last week I saw in the comments after our Facebook Live that someone said, oh, they're so glad the Tellico Bear Refuge took them, and do they still live there today? The Bear Refuge is not a sanctuary. It's like a wildlife management area. So bears that were released there in Tellico, those are free wild and free bears in a wild bear habitat. But that was the name of it, the Tellico Bear Refuge at the time, but it is not a facility for captive bears. So Nicholas and Rambler were released back to the wild in Tellico in September of 2006. And you see a picture of Rambler up in the tree. He enjoyed being up in the trees, and then also on the bottom, that's a picture of him at his release. The next two bears that came in again in April, so Lisa had a very busy April in 2006. And, you know, sometimes that's when, probably if you go back and look at an average year, that's probably when things really start happening, or late March or early April. Although last year was certainly unusual with our first yearling admitted in February. So not every bear, every year rather, is the average, but this particular year, April, was a busy year for Lisa. And there were two orphan male cubs, also from Georgia. They weighed 6 pounds each, and they were nicknamed Smokey and Bubba. So this was bear 69 and 70. And it was said in the notes that Smokey was often observed picking up his food in his front paws while he was sitting on his haunches, and then he would roll backwards holding his food to eat. So you can kind of visualize that in your mind. And then that Bubba was a quiet, polite bear who enjoyed playing with his brother Smokey. Both of these bears were also unable to be released back to Georgia. And some of the documentation we have said that they were confiscated, so we don't know what their history was prior to coming to ABR. But Bubba and Smokey were placed at the Stone Zoo in New England, and they weighed 252 and 290 pounds when they were transferred there, and they still reside there today. So you can see a picture on the bottom of Smokey and Bubba at the Stone Zoo, and I think this is a picture from sometime in the last year or so, but they still reside there. You can go to their website and check them out. And it was interesting that you'll also notice that they were here almost 2 years as well. And like I said, when you have bears that you have to place in captivity that are not able to be released, it can be a long, not only is it a long-term commitment for whoever takes them, but it's also a long-term commitment to try to find a placement. It's not easy to find a place for bears that can't be released. But it just so happened that at that time, the Stone Zoo was announcing the construction of a black bear exhibit. And so they offered to take Smokey and Bubba. And it seems that they had a polar bear that was very popular there at their facility at the Stone Zoo for many years. But in 2000, that polar bear had passed away. So they had decided that they would turn his polar bear exhibit into a black bear exhibit. And they graciously agreed to take Smokey and Bubba there at the Stone Zoo, and certainly appreciate them doing that. And they've given them a home there all these years. And as I said, you can go to their website and check up on Smokey and Bubba. Maybe some of you that live in New England might be able to go visit there and see them. Following that, in May, two little females came in, number 71 Honey and number 72 Maple. They were orphaned after their mother was hit by a car in Gatlinburg, and both were 4 months of age, and they weighed about 10 pounds each when they were admitted. We don't know much about them in the notes other than that they were admitted. They were released in April of 2007, and they weighed 101.4 and 93 pounds. One of the things that I think, if you look at the pictures, these were two beautiful bears, particularly little Maple on the bottom. Just a beautiful bear, has some very pretty markings and nice healthy coat. So you can see even back then, Appalachian Bear Rescue was still producing some beautiful bears, healthy bears, and they had an excellent weight when they were released as yearlings. The next bear that came in was number 73, Ozark, and he came in May, and he was 4 months old, a little male cub from Arkansas, and weighed 18 pounds when he arrived. And again, don't know a whole lot about him other than he was released back to Arkansas a year later, May of 2007, weighing 125 pounds. The next couple of bears that came in were sad stories. You know, we've said that the bears that come here, there's a reason they're here. And it's never a good reason that a bear has to come to Appalachian Bear Rescue. But number 74, Eureka, came in June of 2006. She was also a little orphan cub from Arkansas, 6 months of age. She weighed 8 pounds at admittance. And while overwintering at Appalachian Bear Center, she died in the den. So there were some bears staying over winter, and she was just found dead in the den, and there was no determined cause as to why she died. The next little pair, number 75 and number 76, Cody and Cheyenne, came in June of 2006. And they were orphaned near a vacation rental in Gatlinburg when a man tried to get a picture of them with their mom. And from all the notes, the man had a dog with him, and there was some interference with the dog and the man trying to get a picture. And ultimately, it resulted in these little cubs being separated and orphaned from their mom. So they weighed 12 pounds each at the time and were brought to the center. They remained here till April 2007, weighing 125 and 108.8 pounds. And so here again, we have these two beautiful cubs. You can look at the picture, and again, with these two little females, just beautiful little bears. Another sad story of how humans can cause bears to be orphaned and separated from their mom, and just another lesson of why we need to leave them alone and give them their space. You know, and you think, was that picture, if he even got a picture, was it worth it to separate these two girls from their mom? Now, ultimately, they were released back to the wild, so you can say that's a success, but you know, they would have been so much better off to have been with their mom. So just another lesson out there about us as humans and how we need to keep our distance from wildlife and just leave them alone and let them be wild and free. Now, the next bear also came from Arkansas, and I had to look up the pronunciation of this name, how to say this. It's actually Washita, from what I could find. And so I would have really butchered that had I not looked it up about 1 minute before we came on live today. So I was really glad that I looked up that pronunciation. But Washita was admitted in August of 2006 and was found orphaned in the Washita Mountains in Arkansas, weighing 14.5 pounds. And sadly, the little female, 7 months old, died of an undetermined cause 2 months later here at the facility. There was a necropsy done, but there really was no determined cause as to why she passed away. But as we've said before, starvation can really take its toll on a lot of bears, especially the cubs and yearlings we see. Some of them, and most, do overcome it, but it affects them all in different ways. And so we don't know if that was a factor in that or if there was something genetic, but there was no determined cause as to why she passed away, but she only lived here a short time. The next one was also a sad story. Number 78, Hope, was admitted in August of 2006, and she was a tiny 8-month-old female. And she was found hiding under a cabin here in Townsend, Tennessee by a construction crew and was in very, very poor health. And there were remarks that all of her baby teeth had fallen out just from starvation and from malnutrition. And she had been on her own, they estimated, about 2 to 3 months. And sadly, she only lived a few weeks here at the facility before she succumbed to illnesses, and her necropsy showed some pneumonia and some lung issues. So this little bear had struggled for a long time, was very, very sick, and just in under a month from being here, she passed away. And the last bear admitted in 2006 was number 79, Little Bear. Admitted in November, and Little Bear was 11 months old, a little male weighing 15 pounds, found orphaned in Louisiana. And the little cub was starving. A deer hunter observed it chewing on sugarcane stubble in a harvested sugarcane field. But one of the things that was really sweet about in the notes that Lisa had in an old newsletter was that she talked about Little Bear having just poor teeth, near starvation, and but that he had a very feisty bear attitude. And in several notes that I found, referred to him as feisty. So Little Bear went back to Louisiana in April of 2007, weighing 93.6 pounds, took his feisty attitude right back to Louisiana. So that's our year of 2006. Some successes in bears being released, some sad stories, and then some other lessons learned about humans interfering with bears.